Hi, I'm Cindy Hathaway with Fons and Porter, and today's So Easy lesson is string blocks from ties. It's a really different process, and first of all, you want to take all your father's ties if he has some, or we went to a thrift store and purchased several ties. And the first thing you want to do when you get home is go through and sort them out, because when we made these blocks, we wanted all silk ties. And on the back of each tie, 99.9% of the time, it will tell you what types of fabric they are. So we've laid out a few here. We have a silk tie. We have a wool tie. This is a combination of different fabrics. This one is actually made from either llama or alpaca. This is a polyester tie. And this one over here is, I believe it to be a homemade cotton tie. So if you wanted to make a quilt with blocks from all polyester, that's fine. But I wouldn't mix them that much just because of the thickness of the fabrics. So right here in front of me, we have the blocks that have been done, and we're going to there's actually 4 blocks here. I'm going to refer back to them towards the end of this So Easy lesson. When you get your ties, you're going to want to open them up. And if they're really dirty, you could take and have them dry cleaned, especially if you're using silk, you would, have to have them dry cleaned. What we opted to do is take them apart and make your blocks, and then take the whole quilt and have it dry cleaned at the same time. You're going to take your label off, and then you have to open each tie up, and it usually doesn't take too long. You want to take the stabilizer out of the middle and take your seam ripper. Some of these come apart a little easier than others. And you don't have to be extremely careful because this one seems to have a little bit more stitching in it than some. Let's see if we can get to the end of this. The one thing I found amazing is how wide some of the ties are when you open them up. They don't look that wide from the front, but they really have a lot of silk in them. There's a stabilizer on the middle of each tie that you're going to want to take out. And that will, you'll take that out of the tie before you go ahead and press it. There's a little piece at the bottom normally so that they've turned the tie in. And you can just take a pair of scissors and cut close to where that's sewn. I don't worry too awful much about being real neat with it. We want to make sure that we can open up the tie to one layer. And that opens it up nicely. So now you have a lot more tie to work with. Your next step in this process would be to take your tie. You would totally unstitch it, but take your tie to your pressing mat. And what I like to do was use a pressing sheet. And the reason for this is some of the different silks will bleed, and you don't want that all over your iron. So you're going to press your tie, and then when you've gotten it pretty well flattened out, I take and starch it. This makes it a lot more manageable when you're cutting and sewing on the silk. Again, use your pressing sheet to try and avoid getting any color on your pressing surface. As you can see, this is a lot more sturdy now. It's not as flimsy, and you can take your ties and go ahead and cut different widths out of it. Now I have some other ties that are already all the way opened up, and I wanted to point out a couple things. This tie is huge on the bottom, but there's also different areas that you can use to cut out. You may choose just to cut a strip out of the gray and then some strips out of the red. Or you may choose to cut something down the center and have gray and white. So it gives you a lot of flexibility within one tie to come up with different colors. Here's one that you can see I've cut some long strips off of, and I've cut some shorter pieces off of it. So we're going to go ahead, I'm going to show you how easy it is just to slice off a piece of this to use. Get your klutz glove on so you don't get hurt. And I'm going to come over here and just cut maybe 1.25 inch slice. I found that anywhere from 1 inch to 2.5 inches is a nice size strip to have. It gives a little variation, which makes it a lot more interesting when you're doing your blocks. Whoops, don't want to cut on your ruler. And then just like this still has, I could cut even a 3/4 inch piece out of this. Not all the way down to the bottom. You can see that it's narrower down here from the other cuts. And we've still got a little bit on here. And in the case of the bottom, I would just slice it off and save that for later, because when you do your corner pieces, you're going to want some that are wider and not just a strip. So even though this one was just had a few slices left available on it to use, I have a bunch of other ones that have been cut. And that's what I did first. I just went through and made myself several different strips, widths, lengths, colors, and just put them in a pile. And then as I'm stitching my blocks, I can just pull one out. We have a nice big chunk for a corner. You can see they're all different random widths on that. So let's put this up towards the top. And you're going to take a piece of muslin and cut it to a size that's at least 1/2 inch bigger than what you want for your finished size, because we're going to cut this down in the end. And you can pick how you want to do this. You start with a piece and lay it from one corner to the next. I like to take a glue stick and just put a little dab on there. This glue stick, the glue will dry clear, and it's just something to hold it temporary. So I've put my first strip on the muslin with the right side up. The next thing you're going to do is pick another strip and lay that down right sides facing. And what I found with some of the silk ties is they're the same on the front as the back, or maybe just a little bit different shading. So sometimes you can use the same tie and have a different shade so it looks like another color. You're going to take that to your sewing machine from there, and you're going to stitch a 1/4 inch seam. So we're going to go over here. And you may have noticed that I make sure the fabric hangs off each side. You want to have plenty of fabric to trim down later. So we're just going to do a nice 1/4 inch seam. And these are a little slippery, but it's really, they're not too hard to handle. Let's cut the threads and bring this back over where you can see it. Now you're just going to open this out and take it over to the pressing board and press it again. And by now, after you've used the starch, I found that most of the color has set for this purpose. So I'm going to press this, set my seam. So I don't use the pressing sheet this time. And just open it up and press it. If you wanted, you could place pins in this as you go along. I really didn't find a need for it. The next thing I would do is just come back, pick another one, and it doesn't matter what color you pick. Right sides together, again. And if you wanted to save a little time, you could put a pin in this side. And the only reason that I would do that is so I can now pick another color to put on the red, and it doesn't matter which one you pick, and then I would put a pin in there. So when you go back to your sewing machine, you're able to do 2 seams, and it just saves a little bit of time. So it would be the same process again. Go to your sewing machine, do a 1/4 inch seam, open it out, press it, and then just continue adding pieces until you get to the outside. And once you get to your corners, I want to show you the big piece that I put out here. I put a big piece out here, and you can see from the back that it has to cover a large section. So when you do that, you're also going to want to take a little dab of glue to hold your corners down. And the reason for that is after you've cut this down, you don't want those corners flipping back up when you join your squares together. This block is now ready. Let's get some of this out of the way for you. This block is now ready to be trimmed down because, as you can see, this would be a little bit difficult to use. So we're going to take it, and our pattern happens to call for a 6-inch, to cut this down to 6 inches. So whatever your pattern tells you, that's what you want to cut it down to. I'm going to put my klutz glove on for safety reasons. And I'm going to cut this off nice and even. Turn it around. Line up my ruler on the bottom and make this side nice and straight, nice and even. Now when I turn it around for the next cut, I want to make sure that I'm getting my 6-inch block. So I'll line the 6-inch line on this side, a line across the bottom to make sure that we're nice and square, cut off the extra for this side. Now I have the 6 inches going from this side to this side. Turn it one more time. Line up your 6 inches again on the left-hand side and trim off this side. Once you've done that, you have a nice, clean, usable block. And if you didn't want to, you don't have to have your corners as large as this. It's just a matter of preference and how many ties you have. Once you get them done, all your blocks done, you can lay them out to make a secondary pattern. And I thought this was pretty neat. If you make sure that you have your bigger corners in the center, it kind of forms a little box for you. If you want, you can have it with just all the stripes coming into the center. And then you have another pattern that kind of looks like an X. So it's pretty neat to see what you can do with these. And it's a nice keepsake if you want to make quilts for all the siblings from your father's tie. It's a fun process. So I hope you've enjoyed this Sew Easy lesson today, string blocks from ties. We have several other Sew Easy lessons available to you at fonsandporter.com. Thanks for joining me.